Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
I'm Noble McIntyre of McIntyre Law, and I've been representing injured Oklahomans and their families for almost 30 years. At our firm, we've handled hundreds of crashes involving semis. They are huge vehicles, and when fully loaded, can weigh as much as 80,000 pounds. Most semi drivers are careful and professional drivers, but some big truck drivers and the companies they drive for are dangerous, and I've personally seen the devastating effects on families. If you or a loved one has been affected by a semi crash, contact us at 405-777-7000 or McIntyreLaw.com. We will fight for you.
Achieve platinum status in the Fuel Rewards program at Shell and save 10 cents per gallon on every fill. Right now, you're less than 5 miles away from your closest Shell, so make a pit stop this afternoon and fill your tank with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Click the screen now to learn more about platinum status in the Fuel Rewards program or download the Shell app today. Platinum status is earned with 12 fill-ups over 3 months, 10-gallon minimum per fill-up at participating Shell locations. Terms apply. Visit www.fuelrewards.com/status.
It's back to school season for the kiddos, which means it's the perfect time to get your vacay on. Beaches are empty, resorts are quiet, and Cheap Caribbean Vacations has fall vacay deals up to, wait for it, 45% off.
Plus, you can score more site-wide savings and take an extra $50 off your booking now through September 5th. Take this as your sign to pencil in a vacay this fall and turn back-to-school season into back-to-beach season.
Go to cheapcaribbean.com to find your next all-inclusive vacay. Offer ends September 5th.
You can achieve platinum status in the Fuel Rewards program at Shell twice as fast by filling up 6 times with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Right now, you're less than 5 miles away from your closest Shell, so make a pit stop this afternoon and fill your tank with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Click the screen now to learn more about platinum status in the Fuel Rewards program or download the Shell app today. Platinum status is earned with 12 fill-ups over 3 months, 10-gallon minimum per fill-up at participating Shell locations. Terms apply. Visit www.fuelrewards.com/status.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
To a lot of true crime, I listen to it at night. I like the girl talk, it makes me feel alright. I like scary stories in the morning, and I like them at night. I like the girl talk vibes, they make me feel just fine. I listen to a lot of true crime.
and welcome into Front Porch Forensics, ladies and gentlemen. I am Rick Robinson. I'm the general manager around these parts here at KLRN Radio, and you are tuning in for our every 2-week foray into everything murder. And the hosts are Bumpstock Ken and Bumpstock Barbie. And as of now, I'm going to turn everything over to Bumpstock Barbie, as Bumpstock Ken will be joining us here momentarily. And take it away, ma'am.
Yeah, hey y'all. Daniel will be joining me shortly. He normally does our lead-ins and intros, but when the Tiny Tyrant is at a party with a lot of people and says that she's anxious, you drop everything and you go get her. So I'm kicking it off with y'all tonight. And this one actually is very, very topical. So we had the election just barely 2 weeks ago. And we have had a major murder-suicide and even just another murder. So 5 total victims that we're going to talk about tonight. But all of this ties into the overwhelming mental health crisis that we have in this country right now. And there is actually a crisis, and nobody seems to want to talk about it. And it's very one-sided right now because the media is not on our side, and they're contributing to a lot of this. But I'll basically give you a rundown of the 2 crimes, and we're going to start in Minnesota with a man named Anthony Nephew, who is 46 years old. The Duluth police chief actually said that he had a pattern of mental health issues, and he ended up shooting and killing his wife, his ex, and his 2 sons, and then himself. Authorities found his ex-partner, Aaron Abramson, and their son, Jacob, dead from apparent gunshot wounds inside their homes just this past Thursday. After identifying Anthony Nephew as a suspect, police found his 45-year-old wife, Catherine Nephew, and their 7-year-old son, Oliver Nephew, dead from gunshot wounds inside the family home close by. And this is where Anthony himself, the shooter, was found as well. Before the rampage, though, he had been sharing very, very left-wing anti-Trump posts on his Facebook account, one of which read, quote, "My mental health and the world can no longer peacefully coexist, and a lot of the reason is religion." And he wrote this in July. He said, "I am terrified of religious zealots inflicting their misguided beliefs on me and my family. I have intrusive thoughts of being burned at the stake as a witch or crucified on a burning cross. Having people actually believe that I or my child are Satan or the Antichrist or whatever color of boogeyman they are afraid of this week." I mean, this is very, very obviously like the ramblings of an unsound mind. Because, I mean, even those of us on the right, yes, we are demonized by people on the left, but we're not usually actually calling people Satan or threatening to burn them at the stake or crucify them. And these were these intrusive thoughts that this man was having. And in another post, he actually accuses Republicans of, quote, "making it harder for women to leave abusive relationships due to the boogeyman that Project 2025 has become," which has been attributed to Trump and he has no affiliation with whatsoever. And for the most part, if you've ever actually read anything about 2025, it's just basic conservative principles, like very, very small, limited government. We're not penalizing anybody from living abusive relationships. I myself, a lot of people know, I have survived an abusive relationship. I'm an abuse survivor, a rape survivor. Been there, done that. Nobody's coming after me for this, and nobody's coming after anybody else who has been through this, man or woman. It does not matter. If you're in an abusive relationship, there is help to be found. But this man thinks that now Republicans are apparently going to penalize you if you leave an abusive relationship. He wrote, "Gilead, here we come," which Gilead is a reference to The Handmaid's Tale, which is now the left's apparently favorite TV show ever in existence. Uh, he shared other political posts, including an image of Barack Obama, Trump, and Biden and Harris. But the word hate sits right up under Trump's face, and the words hope, heal, and grow correspond with the Democrat politicians there. He said, not that anyone cares, but as an independent voter, I would really like to see both the political parties in our country pick better candidates. We can do better than a binary choice between fascism and not fascism. And this is another buzzword that we're hearing a lot in the media from Democrats, from just anybody generally on the left, really now. This is where it's coming from. We hear the word fascism all the time now. And they really don't know what it means, first off. But then this news article goes into where he spoke of his ongoing battle with his mental health issues. That, I mean, these were issues that he had years before now, but they came to a head this past week, and now 4 people, 2 of them children, are dead because of it. And he does go on to say mental health in this country is stigmatized, ignored, or treated as a burden for the individual to bear alone with little help, less understanding. And he is actually 100% right on that, because mental health in the U.S. is still extremely stigmatized. There's a lot that's attached to that makes people not want to seek help, because they don't want to be seen as crazy or whatever else the trope may be at that time. But they don't want to seek it out. He said Americans deny they have mental health struggles because they have to, because they're told to, or because they don't realize that their mind is broken. And that is absolutely heartbreaking to me, because I am somebody that struggles with mental illness. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder when I was 17 years old, and I've basically been on medication for it ever since. And I'm one of those people, I recognize that I have this. He recognized that he had issues, that he needed help. He spoke openly about this, but it seems like nobody took him seriously. And again, it's absolutely heartbreaking to me, because now there are children involved who are no longer among us, and that should never be a thing. As of right now, the writing on the New York Post says police in Duluth, which is about 135 miles north of Minneapolis, have not yet determined a motive in the shootings. But I mean, based on his social media writings, it does seem like we do have a for this. Like, we know that he absolutely did this because Trump got elected a couple of weeks ago, just back on the 6th. This was something that he thought was going to affect his daily life, that his family was going to be targeted, that he was going to be burned at the stake or crucified. His children were viewed as Satan. The women that he cared about in his life were going to be subjugated. I mean, this was clearly the motive in this tragedy. And like, I don't even have the words to describe like just how awful that is, that these people lost their lives because somebody they knew was not okay acted on those fears finally. And I usually, like Daniel usually kind of picks up sometimes here, so I'm kind of struggling to fill gaps until he gets home. But there's another prominent story that came out. It was a wife of a prominent trans writer hacked her father to death with an ice axe after Trump's election night victory. This actually happened on election night, not a few days later. According to the New York Post, a space rocket program manager butchered her father with an ice axe on election night after a breakdown following President-elect Donald Trump's victory, and was found smiling, clapping, covered in her father's blood, according to the police who showed up. Her name was Corey Burke. She allegedly strangled, bit, and hacked her 67-year-old father to death in what she called an act of liberation. Like, after killing her father, she broke all the windows, most of the windows in the house, and said that that was symbolic of her liberation. Like, she was freed from something by killing her father and then breaking all these windows. Says she's 33 years old, a training program manager at Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos's spacecraft company. She is married to prominent transgender writer Samantha Lee Allen. This is all according to public record as of right now. It goes into talk about the spouse, but she's not part of this, he or she. She said the killing was meant to, quote, help people change their attachment to their parents and had to happen today. And that's what Burke told the police, while court documents say that, like, she is saying all this while she is still covered in her father's blood. Said that she had been upset about the election and knew Trump would handily beat Vice President Kamala Harris when she allegedly snapped. And apparently all of this was over her father, Timothy Burke, refusing to turn off the lights. That was, I guess, according to the documents that I've got, that was the last straw. Just, he refused to turn off the lights. She then went upstairs, grabbed a pickaxe, tripped her father, choked and bit him on the floor, struck him repeatedly with the blunt and sharp ends of the axe. And I assume this means it was like mountain climbing axe where you've got like kind of the hammer end and then you've got the spike end of it. I assume. Says that she then sat down next to her father, watched him die, then smashed all the windows in the house in what she described as an act of liberation. And this is where this one gets me. When the cops arrive, they are stated as saying that they found Corey Burke clapping because she was so happy. So there's your mental image here. This young woman, 33 years old, covered in her father's blood, and clapping and celebrating the fact that she has just murdered her father. Like, I don't even know how you really describe that. That's insane.
2 words, knucking futs. That's how you describe it.
I mean, you have to. And I mean, again, we are talking about mental health here. So you obviously have to be very, very disconnected from anything that, like, me or you or somebody else would consider like sane and rational. That's not even an option at this point.
Well, I mean, anybody who would murder her own father and then be sitting there clapping like a kid that won a pony, that's not normal.
No, that is highly, highly abnormal. And I actually kind of wonder now, I'm going to be following that court case as it plays out, because I want to see if they're going to go for like diminished capacity or, insanity at the time. Because weirdly enough, insane is a legal term and is not actually a psychological term. It just means that somebody is not consciously aware of the either right or wrongness of the act that they have committed. Like, they have no comprehension that what they did was wrong. And that may actually play out because, I mean, she told the police that she had a strained relationship with her father without strong boundaries, and it left her feeling hyper-focused and disorganized, which seems very weird, but I think that's kind of more of maybe an ADHD type of situation where you get that hyper-focus on one very, very small aspect of something, but you're very disorganized in other areas of your life. But she said that Trump's election victory overwhelmed her and pushed that tension with her father to the breaking point. So when the officers actually got to the house, she came out of the house with her hands up and blood was smeared on her face. And she said she didn't have any idea where that blood came from or who smashed the windows. So at least according to what she claimed, she was disconnected from what she had done consciously. That statement has just arrived now. So
Yeah, it was the background noise was kind of. Yep, I'm guessing
Yeah.
Daniel's home.
yes, that was our screen door opening and closing. But yeah, she at least according to what she told the police, when she had no idea where the blood came from or who smashed the windows in the house. Then she later described the dispute with her father over the lights, eventually whispering, "I killed him," to one officer. And she has been charged with first-degree murder, which, if it played out the way that she says, I don't necessarily agree with first-degree murder charges on that, but that could be a whole different discussion. But say I went over both the cases while you were gone.
So you got both of them covered?
But say I already gave the details of both of them.
So why wouldn't you go first degree? Just because it was active and
First degree murder has to be premeditated.
Yeah, this is more of a
impulse.
Hell, Rick, thank you for covering the intro and hanging out and taking the lead on that.
Not a problem. I was already here anyway.
Yeah, I could see that argument not being first degree murder because
if she's not lying, she very well may have planned this out and everything and intended to do it if Trump won,
Yeah, I don't know.
But it just, there doesn't seem to be any evidence that it was premeditated.
Well, here's the thing. If she had planned it out that way, for instance, to go to that far of a step and say Trump didn't win, will she go like, well, okay, I won't do it now?
That's a whole different question.
The brutality of that murder and the state she was in when the cops found her, I don't think that if Kamala would have won, her chosen candidate would have won, I don't think that would have triggered it. So I don't think it would have been premeditated, because if it was premeditated on the event that Trump won, then I don't think that state she was in she would have been in that state unless she's an incredibly good actress as well.
Yeah.
So I think it was an impulse type of trigger.
Passion type of deal.
Triggered it, yeah.
She said that the fight originated because her father wouldn't turn off the lights.
Which, why? Why does that matter?
I don't know. The article, everything that I've read about it, there's no information on why she wanted the lights out and why he wouldn't turn them off. I have no idea.
See, now if the roles were reversed, I'd get it. As a dad, you come in the house and all the lights are on for no reason whatsoever. I understand. But this is just backwards.
That is your daily life, especially now that the weather's turning and it gets dark sooner. Our life turns into a country song.
Yes, it
Every
does.
light in the house is on.
Yep. That's what I do. As soon as I walked in, I turned off the kitchen light, didn't I?
Yes.
I think it's definitely her story, especially.
Yeah, hers seems to be definitely more of an impulsive crime.
Yeah.
Than a premeditated one.
Well, and also, you said you talked about both cases, right?
Yeah, I kind of just gave the general rundown of both of them.
Okay. Well, like on the
Anthony Nephew was the other guy that the murder suicide.
He had a long list of, a long history online of him showing some downward spiral.
Oh yeah, I mentioned posts going back as far as July where he mentioned his struggles with his mental health, and I even agreed with some of his posts saying that it's so stigmatized that it makes people not want to seek help when they're struggling with something.
Yeah. Well, it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because I've noticed there's an uptick in to be that stigmata against, we're shamed almost to say that.
Well, not stigmata, because that's a whole different thing, but stigma.
Stigma. I'm sorry.
Close, but not quite.
The stigma of it being
it's taboo. You're not supposed to, especially even getting into our parents' generations and older than them. Yeah. It's not something you ever talked about.
Well, even my generation didn't talk about it. It wasn't something to be a badge of honor type thing.
Which in my generation is so weird because it is now like a badge of
Yeah.
honor that, you're diagnosed with this mental illness,
Well,
like you're a hero.
It's moved, and I'm fine with. There needs to be open discussion about mental illness across the board. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be looked down upon and made fun of or anything like that. But also doesn't need to be glorified either. It needs to be accepted and openly talked about.
Because it is something that is actually happening. I
Yeah.
mean, this is a real, like your brain can get sick just like any other organ in your body.
But
it's
like it's just kind of the pendulum thing when it swings from one end all the way to the other. We're at the far end now. It used to be we was at that end where nobody ever talked about it. It was something to be quiet about. It was a taboo subject. Now that pendulum's pulled around to it's not in the darkness anymore. Now we're shining a full bore spotlight on it.
And it's not that we're just highlighting it and we're noticing it, is that we're almost celebrating it.
That's what I was going to say. That spotlight is a spotlight of fame. Just like you went on the stage and they hit you with that spotlight. Now that spotlight and that mentality's on it.
And I think that started, I'm an elder millennial, which I'm officially adopted by Gen Xers. So I classify myself, I self-identify as a Gen Xer because I do not want to be associated with millennials because we are pretty much bat crap crazy for the most part.
Well, it's
there are some of them like me that were like, this is not okay. Like y'all are being weird.
Yeah. But I mean, right now this current batch is, like I said, it's celebrated. It's almost a badge of honor it plays in the part also with that victim mentality now that it's almost a badge of honor to be a victim, a perceived victim of some sort.
And well, speaking of perception, like we see a massive uptick in people self-diagnosing with mental illness too.
Oh yeah.
Just because they want that label, they want to be part of that identity group.
Mm-hmm.
So from millennials, from my age and younger, now especially now we're seeing with Gen Z, you get these people like self-identifying because and it's a self-imposed sense of victimhood because the victim identity is the core of their identity. They do not know who they are if they cannot be a victim of something.
Right.
These are people that have never had to be introspective. They have never had to look inward and figure out who they are as a person in and of themselves.
Right.
Is how they identify with someone else or with something else. And nowadays, the victimhood, if you're a victim of something, you basically, like with identity politics, like the more victim boxes you can check off, like the better off you are, like the more special you are.
And it also, in doing that, like I said, it poisons it in a way because the people who really need it get lost in that shuffle.
Yeah. Like people like us, like me, that, have to have medication and everything for this. And, you've seen me struggle with this for years. And my mental illness is even kind of a mild one in comparison to a lot of stuff that could be wrong with me. But you've seen me struggle with all this, and medication is the only thing that has ever helped me.
Have they told our listeners what you're talking about?
I told them that I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder when I was 17. So
I'm about to say, just don't leave that hanging out there.
I was about to say, I mean, considering the topic of our show and kind of the reputation that I have and the skill set that I have learned, I guess, over the years, there could be a lot worse things wrong with me than just having anxiety.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say too, is that the people who have issues, diagnosed ones, they get lost in this glamorization of mental health or illness.
Like you see it glamorized and you realize these people don't actually have anything wrong with them.
Yeah, you see these people that's trained claiming things, and the people that actually have stuff going on that are getting lost in that shuffle, being covered up by that blanket of popularity,
That and they're seen kind of the same way as those other people is, oh, well, you're just saying this to say it.
Mhm.
Like, you're saying it because it's like the trendy thing to do now.
Yeah.
And like, as somebody with this mental illness, and mine is fairly severe. I mean, you can vouch for that. I mean, it gets really, really ugly sometimes. And, I see these people talking about it like it's absolutely nothing, and it's infuriating.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell you've never suffered from anything more stressful than, like, oh, you didn't get, like, a B on your test or something.
Yeah.
And you want to say you're mentally ill and you have a problem because of that, because of how you dealt with that.
Yeah. And I think some of that might have been starting off with, I know when ADHD becomes super popular all of a sudden. And now there is an uptick in like autism spectrum, especially, and things along those lines.
Especially now that we know what it is.
Which I think a lot of people say, well, we're better at diagnosing it. Well, I kind of, with RFK Jr. on this, I think it's a lot of it is not bred into us, but created into us by diets and things like that that's going on. All these, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I think he's onto something with the huge uptick in vaccines coming up. They're messing with people's chemical imbalances.
What they're calling vaccines now, especially.
Yeah, that's definitely playing a part too, because you can look at the uptick in vaccinations, or quote unquote vaccinations, as infants, and then you can look at the same information for the same number of years, and you see that uptick of the autisms and the mental illnesses and all these kind of things, especially when it comes to what would you call a mental illness of the brain? Like
I mean, it's just a mental illness. It's a mental disorder.
Yeah, not necessarily this,
chemical imbalances. And
I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it right without sounding bad. The lower level, the tier 1 mental illnesses, you see like the anxieties and all those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said like mine is nowhere near like some other people suffer from,
But you can see the rise in that number with the rise of vaccination as well. So I think there's actual tangible things that we can look at to kind of give an answer to this actual pandemic, in my opinion, what's going on with mental illness now.
Yeah. And one of these things is 100% media influence.
Yeah, that's what I was going to link to.
Yeah, this is where
But what I was going to say about these people that gets lost in it, like these 2 stories we talked about here, when these people that are struggling, real deal struggles.
Now, and the woman, Corey Burke, and the stuff that I've read, I have not found anything where like she has ever spoken about mental illness or anything like that. But I mean, obviously it is there. Something has gone undiagnosed, unnoticed, something. She fell through the cracks somewhere.
It's simple to be fall through the cracks. Everybody's crazy now. And everybody's got something going on with it. Well, to be popular. I won't say everybody, but you know what I'm speaking.
I mean, somebody who is going to actually take another person's life over this. Clearly, this is not something they're doing for, I mean, hopefully at least it's not doing it just to make a name for themselves or gain popularity or gain sympathy, whatever,
Well, we've seen it in some of the other stories. We do the looking into the mindset of the serial killers and stuff. There's always signs coming up. And I'm sure this woman had signs as well.
Yeah. I have not come across any in the research I was doing. But you had to know that they were there. But she was, I mean, it says she was married, but she was living with her father. So I don't know necessarily what's going on with that relationship. Because if you're married, why would you be living with your father?
Yeah, she's married to the transgender
author.
Yeah. She could have just, I don't know, and I'm just speculating. The author could have been traveling somewhere. She was staying, living part-time.
Yeah, very well could have been.
I don't know. Doesn't matter. What I was saying is that when you have people, these 2 that we're talking about tonight especially, or as examples, people who have these issues, they get caught up in just that big pile of claimed mental illnesses, and they get lost in there, right? So until something like this happens, a lot of those times you don't realize how bad it is until something big like this happens.
You never put two and two together.
Because this guy and the one case and this girl and the other, their signs had to have been there. But because it's so normalized now, they probably just were like, okay, and just kind of brushed off to the side with what they were saying, what they were experiencing.
And that actually reminds me.
It's kind of like if everything's racist, nothing's racist.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
If everybody's mentally ill, then nobody's mentally ill.
Exactly right. That's what I was getting.
Yeah. Rick, did you get that video that Gene had sent us in the group chat? Because we could actually bring that up because it's exactly what we're talking about here. Especially, it's a video of especially Harvard right now after the election having like classes canceled and everything because these kids did not have the wherewithal, the coping mechanisms whatsoever to deal with an election result that they didn't agree with.
Yeah, I have it. Hang on.
That'd be a good lead into.
I mean, that's where this is all going because all of this is fed by the media and the Democrats right now.
Media and Hollywood.
Celebrities, yeah.
Well, hang on.
But when you get people who are easily manipulated, they don't have the coping mechanisms that they need, and you feed them full of fear mongering,
propaganda, lies, and
all the time, it happens. This is what
you're
you get.
going to terrify them.
All right, hang on. Let me make sure it's working. I think it is. Yeah. Okay. Hang on. Sorry, I had to pull it from a different screen entirely, so it wasn't showing up at first, but I got it. Hang on.
Okay.
Yeah, we got video, but no sound.
There he goes.
Okay.
Well, while he's working on that, like I said, you see it a lot.
Hang on, I'll have to do it a different way, but I can still get to it. Hang on.
Okay.
You guys talk among yourselves for a second.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, what we're leading into is you see, especially over the past several years.
It's really ramped up since 2015 when Trump announced that he was running. Yeah. You see, I mean, we kind of already saw this happening when Barack Obama was running, both terms, 2008 and 2012.
Right.
We kind of really saw them, especially Mitt Romney's binder and everything, all the fear mongering that started to really escalate, I guess, against Republicans and the right.
Mm-hmm.
And people started believing all of these things that they hear because all of their media that they're consuming is pushing this. The Democrats are always in the news because we know 99% of mainstream outlets, mainstream news channels are basically now propaganda arms of the Democrats. Yeah. And now you've got all the celebrities in their ear. Any kind of media, any kind of leftist media that is so prominent is in these young kids' ears from such a very early age. And this is instilling a fear and anxiety, almost a terror into them.
And I'll say that you have a group, just like with the Republicans, you have Republicans and you have conservatives. And in the Democrat side, you have you have Democrats and you have liberals.
Well,
what we would call on our you have Democrats, you have liberals, and then you have that next level, which is like what we would consider the far left and all that kind of stuff. Just like the left says to us, the far right.
Like Nick Fuentes, the old twerp.
Well, Nick Fuentes is not an actually conservative or Republican at all.
But they consider him far right.
But that's what I'm saying. He's not even right wing.
What a professor sent to students.
Hang on, sorry, I wasn't trying to cut you guys off yet. I was just trying to make sure it was working.
Let me finish this thought on Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is not anything to do conservative, right wing, or Republican.
Yeah, he has no right leaning views, really.
If you actually look into it and put the time into it, he is absolutely 100% a leftist, far leftist troll who is being he's cosplaying what he thinks a far right extremist would be.
And he's doing that intentionally.
He's doing it intentionally, and he does it so well is because he knows their playbook. Mm-hmm. It's why he's doing it. That's why he gets all those views and all these people that seemingly agree with him, which, again, is an extremely small number of people.
I say there are people out there that agree with him and everything, but they do not make up the majority of anything that could be considered right wing.
Yeah, if you actually look at Republican and especially conservative values, none of that matches at all.
It does not align whatsoever.
That's just some more to fear mongering and stuff that is being used right now.
And I think he's being paid now to push the fear mongering about Project 2025.
Yeah, we assume he's getting paid. We have no way of proving that.
Well, I'm sure he's monetized on X. So,
well, before we get to the video, I do have an update about Project 2025 because now that Sylvester Stallone has come out and endorsed President Trump, Project 2025 is going to force everyone to watch every Rocky movie every Saturday.
Hey, I'm already
Daniel's in.
I'm already liking Project 2025, so you ain't got to sell me on it much more. I love Rambo and Rocky up there talking. I love the fact that we got him on our side now.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to go ahead and play this clip, then we'll get back more into the brainwashing that's happening.
All right, here we go.
This is an example of what a professor sent to students at Columbia. I have decided to cancel our class today. I had planned an alternative lecture on modern polling methods and their blind spots. It feels a bit tone deaf to deliver it today.
What a load of crap.
This is a Harvard professor as well. As we recover from the eventful election night, this is crazy. Is this a disease or something? And process the implications of Trump's victory. Please know that class will proceed as usual today, except the classroom quizzes will not be for credit. Feel free to take some time off as needed.
What the fuck, man? This was in the Princetonian. We have been hearing about lots of anxiety from students about the election and felt like listening circles, oh my goodness. Listening circles can be a helpful way to allow students to process and get support from one another.
Okay, whatever. Screw you, snowflakes.
This is a weird group of people, and they call us.
And they call us weird, right? Okay, now that to me goes back to the very beginning of when all this happened, in my opinion. Okay, now I'm Gen X, all right? So I'm those people that everyone seems to hate the most.
You're from Gen X, and right now they do hate y'all because apparently y'all showed up in droves for Donald Trump, so y'all saved us right now.
As Gen X, all I'm going to say is we told you guys we were going to save America. Now quite a few of us are going to go back to sleep. I don't happen to be one of those. Don't fucking wake us up again.
Yeah. You know that old saying, don't poke the bear? Yeah. There you go. So participation trophies.
Yeah.
That was I won't say the beginning, but that was one of the biggest steps into getting where we are now.
I said that should have been the big red flag. Right there.
The problem that bugs me is that many Gen X parents are the ones that started allowing this to happen because it was supposed to, what was that? The Dr. Spock book,
yeah,
being a little more loving and more kind.
Be your child's buddy. And...
Yeah. So when we started experimenting in that, is when it started going downhill. So as a Gen Xer, I do take some responsibility on it. It's not all.
I'll give a disclaimer. Like, we are parents. Our daughter is 15. And we do try to, we obviously listen to her feelings and everything. And we actually have taught her how to have discussions with us about this kind of stuff. But if she's being irrational, we will tell her, hey, you're being irrational. We need to refocus you, stuff like that. She's got all the friends she's ever going to need, but she's only ever going to have us two parents. We're the only parents she's got. So We have to actually step up and be parents, even if it's not always what she likes to hear.
Oh, yeah, you have to hurt her feelings on a lot of stuff sometimes.
Yes.
It's part of it. But
I mean, that's real life, and that's preparing her for real life.
so we Gen Xers raised up millennials, basically. And then the millennials are raising up this current batch. And you have a lot of the older current batch in college and a lot of the younger millennials still in college. So there's kind of some crossovers going on. So we got to take some responsibility for what's going on too. Now, the problem at the college level is that we lost control of the colleges decades and decades ago.
And that was very subtle how they got control that way.
The left, the Democrats have always played a long game. And when I say long game, I'm talking decades long game.
I say we're not talking a year or two in the future. This is 9-10 years.
We started losing control of the colleges in the 60s.
Yeah.
Okay. And nobody stopped it. Nobody stepped in.
No,
so
because
now,
at the time, like, it's very incremental the way that it happens. And that's very smart when you think about it.
Yeah. So now colleges are a training facility for liberals.
Yeah. They are no longer higher education universities or anything.
They will, it doesn't matter what class you're taking. It doesn't matter what your major is or what your specialty is. They all teach the same thing, and that is their propaganda leftist side views. Very rarely do you get anything with a middle of the road, much less a conservative outlook in a college anywhere.
I don't think that I know of really anybody recently talking about even college, like history majors or English majors reading like Thomas Paine, because he was very centrist and very pragmatic, very practical about his political views and everything.
You ain't even got to go that deep. They don't teach the normal stuff like the Constitution anymore. They don't teach.
They started that in
high schools.
I was about to say, I mean, now the Tiny Tyrant, she's got a civics class. They do teach civics still up here at our school, which we are very thankful for. I had it. I remember my civics teacher at the time, because it was actually a separate class from history class. I had a civics class, and then I would go to history. But in my civics class, our teacher, who obviously, you get that trope of the history teacher being the coaches and everything too. So it was Coach Jones. But he actually gave our entire class the immigration and naturalization test that immigrants have to take, like after, they've gone through all the process. 99% of my class failed it. I think me and like 2 other people passed.
It's an extremely hard test.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think a lot of adults right now could pass it.
Well, not only are they not teaching it now, they're teaching perverted versions of it now.
They're teaching that everything that we learned in civics, that our founders and everything were these awful racist colonizers. And
exactly. And the history that's being taught now is that the United States are the bad guys in every situation, and that communist is the correct path to go. Communism.
And that it's only failed because of evil capitalists and everything, just sabotaging it.
I mean, that Chavo fella is on T-shirts of half the college students in class. I'm getting all to get through this to say that I'm 100% behind getting rid of the Department of Education. I think it's long past, needs to be gone.
Now, Department of Education, though, that's more public school and not for private universities, though.
It all starts in high school.
Yeah, I mean,
the private university,
does,
the government can't do anything about that. The
Yeah.
best thing we do is get the government out of school in the first place, because most of the public schools are just teaching you to get you to college now. They don't teach you anything other than they don't teach you how to learn. They teach you what to learn.
Yeah, they teach you how to memorize stuff enough to pass a test
to get you into college for the higher up brainwash.
And like to let's get back to our actual topic here. What they're teaching is that they're teaching these children from a very young age to fear certain things about themselves, like especially white kids.
Yeah.
You're evil because you're white.
Because
white people did awful things in the past because you're white, you're bad too.
Yeah, they instill that self-shame.
That anxiety and I mean, that's exactly what it causes.
Mm-hmm.
You get this sense of anxiety because it's not something you can fix.
Well, then you see their own peers and the people that are teaching them that they're supposed to look up to, feeding them this information. And then they're doing these things where they're bowing down in front of other people based on skin color or ethnicity or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just that mindset. And on the flip side of it, when it is a person of color, they're taught that they're a victim no matter what.
Because of their skin color.
And that the only way that they can take back control of the situation is to become dominant and basically reverse the roles.
Yes. Which they have not solved the problem of racism. They just flipped it around.
Unless you're Asian. And then everybody's supposed to hate Asians.
Apparently so. I mean, look at Harvard.
Yep. No special treatment for you, even though you get the best grades of any.
I mean, we have veered so far off from a meritocracy. It is now victim identity. Like if you are part of a quote unquote victim group, a historically victimized group, then you deserve special treatment, even if you have not earned it.
And that's the thing, historically victimized groups. Well, that doesn't cover enough people. Mm-hmm. So now it's just become, I'm a victim of something. And that way you get special treatment. If
and
you're
this
a
way,
victim
like,
of
okay,
someone.
this anxiety and depression that all of this teaching is instilling in children from, like, we're talking kindergarten on up. We're talking when they're like 4 or 5 years old. They are being taught to hate something that they have no control over. So especially like you tell a white kid that they're awful and they can't do anything about it because it's just what they are.
Mm-hmm.
This is no longer, I guess, technically mental illness. I don't know. It's not a genetic component.
No, but it all builds into it, though.
But from a very early age, these children's brains are still developing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're now rewiring their brain.
And like I said, it's not just little white kids thinking that have been taught that they're racist.
No.
Like I said, you look at the other races on the other side of that coin, they're taught that they can't get ahead on anything unless fill in the blank.
Right.
It's like, and they're not saying it out loud, but what they're doing is heavily implying that you'll never be good enough to do it on your own.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons the government steps in so much, and you see these cities with such low employment numbers and high welfare numbers and all that, because they're taught from an early age that you can't do it on your own. We have to step in and take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I'm a white guy saying that, but you can look it up and see that there's plenty of people.
White people on welfare than there are minorities.
You can look up and see anywhere you want to that there's plenty of black conservatives, people call them Uncle Toms, that will tell you the same thing I'm telling you. So don't think I'm talking down because somebody's black and, oh, look at Mr. White Savior up here talking or whatever, Mr. Racist. It's coming from their own side too. And the fact that, like I said, their own side too. The fact that it is their side or our side is what's ridiculous. They shouldn't be a them and us or they or those other ones. We're all the same kind of people living in the same kind of world. I don't care what outside wrapper you're wearing.
Yeah.
I don't care where you're living at.
It's that them versus us mentality that we're now seeing the fruits of that happening.
And I don't even care if you vote red or blue. We're all the same American people. And until we figure out how to shut off that propaganda machine, then we'll never be back as one American people. And you can see this propaganda machine in the recent years, especially dialed up to 11 with what's going on.
Now we're actually seeing the fruits of their efforts. I mean, we could even go back to like, okay, do you remember a few years ago, like 2015, maybe 2016, somewhere in there, it was after Trump was running, and I can't remember if he had already been elected, but there was that man who was sending bombs to like the media, but the bombs never would go off. And I remember people talking about like, oh, you know, he didn't know what he was doing, and he probably didn't. I mean, just because the bombs didn't go off didn't mean that they couldn't have gone off. It's just that he didn't have, I guess, the knowledge. But this man was deeply, deeply unstable. And I mean, this is on what they would call the right wing side. This would be our side. This was a guy who had, and his van, and I said immediately on his van, I was like, anybody that has that many bumper stickers is not okay. And that's kind of played out too. Everybody that I see that has so many bumper stickers, you can't even tell what color their car is anymore. These people are usually like kind of out there.
Yeah, it was Caesar Sayek, who was sentenced into 20 years in prison back in 2019 for sending bombs to media outlets, and also former President Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Robert De Niro, George Soros, a bunch of people, CNN, Eric Holder,
now
John
this guy,
Brennan.
I bring him up just to prove that this is not one-sided. The rhetoric on both sides is actively influencing people who already have some kind of instability going on in their life. No, I do not pin this on the people saying these things. Like, Trump is not responsible for what Caesar Sayek did.
No.
Any more than Bernie Sanders is responsible for what James Hodgkinson did on that baseball field.
Right.
Like, that's not what we're saying here. We're just saying that already unstable people who have been like hammered for years and years and years, being told that so-and-so is evil, so-and-so is a direct threat and needs to be taken out. And now we're seeing that especially play out heavily with leftists, because we've had 2 assassination attempts on President Trump.
3 assassination attempts.
3.
If you count the nice attack. So here's the thing, is like, it does happen on both sides, but recently, last 8 to 10 years, it's heavily influenced from one side or another. Because when you go daily on 24/7 news cycles, multiple times an hour on multiple different stations, calling a man literally Hitler and that he needs to be disposed of.
That he is an existential threat to democracy that needs to be eliminated.
Yeah.
Somebody out there is going to hear that and they're going to say, I can fix this.
Yeah. We saw 3 attempts of it happen already that we know of.
And
I think there'll be more to come.
Daniel and I were talking about this in the car on the way home today, because we went to see one of my friends who lost their child recently this past week. But we actually, were kind of discussing tonight's episode and got to talking about how after these assassination attempts, there are certain Democrats now that do not get to say that they're not actively trying to get him killed. Because on the one hand, like the days that this happened, they say, like, they put out that standard post like, oh, we got to all on all sides, we got to down the rhetoric. But then immediately within hours, they're all going back to, he's a threat to democracy. He is a Nazi. He's literally Hitler.
Well, you can find,
they know what they are doing now.
You can find one station saying we need to tone down the rhetoric, and exactly the same time on another station, they're still ramping it up again.
But I'm talking like, okay, I think it was actually me that wrote about AOC and Adam Kinzinger talking on one hand, and these posts on Twitter were within hours of one another. And I'm talking on both of them. Like, Adam would say it one time, like, we need to tone down the rhetoric. And then a few hours later, go right back to saying that Trump needs to be eliminated because he's a threat to democracy. AOC did the exact same thing. We have to tone down the rhetoric. And then hours later, he is a threat. We have to take him out. This is fascism.
Yeah.
They know what they are doing. They said to tone down the rhetoric because that's what they're supposed to say. Everybody just wants to have that on record that they did say it.
Right.
They do not mean it, because they turned around immediately, in hours, and contradicted it. They know what they're doing. People like that, I am absolutely convinced at this point, they know what they're doing. They want it to happen. Like, I'm convinced of this. They are feeding off of what they know is mental instability. They know these people are out there, and those are the people they are speaking to. I'm convinced of it.
Well, that rhetoric also not just is putting danger towards Trump himself. What it's also doing is, by the way they describe President Trump and his upcoming cabinet and the things that they're going to do, is what's really triggering, especially these last two, the ones we talked about this earlier that you mentioned earlier in the show. From there, the clues they left behind, the things that they said in their posts leading up to the points that, like for instance, Trump's going to round up people and put them in camps. You know,
I was about to say, like gay people, LGBTQ
sending them to gay
people.
camp, and then they're going to split up interracial marriages and make the white guy or a white person married a white guy and or white girl married a white guy and go, you know what I'm saying? And then, like you said, it's all out there. They're talking about taking away women's rights and making them handmaid's tales and all this kind of stuff.
We had Anthony Nephew, when I was reading off the story about him, literally talked about Gilead, which was the thing in the Handmaid's Tale. That's where they live. Like, Gilead is coming.
And that kind of rhetoric, which again is just over and over and repeatedly brought up and said, even though it's debunked time after time and time again, the media especially, and then there's several bigger name Hollywood actors that are parroting what the media is saying. So to me, when I talk about the media, I'm including Hollywood because it's all that same machine, that propaganda machine that's happening. And they're feeding this idea, and you're seeing people begin to act out on it in the most terrible. Shaving their head is nothing compared to what's happening to some of these families that we spoke, especially what we spoke about today. And I'm afraid more of that's coming until they start, and unless they start toning it down for real, we're going to see more of this kind of thing, especially come January 20th. We're going to see more of this coming.
That's definitely the thing about propaganda, though. It only works if you can make people afraid of something. Yeah. And that's what they're doing, because fear is the easiest way to control a populace. Mm-hmm. You make somebody afraid of something and you promise them that you have a solution for it. They will do whatever you tell them to do.
Yeah, we saw it with COVID. And yes, COVID was a real thing. It would really, really.
And it was serious. I mean, you lived through that. You were in the hospital for 12 days.
So
and they didn't think you were going to come out of the hospital.
No, I'm not denying that COVID was a bad life-ending. I won't even say disease. What would you call it? Virus. Yeah. For many people. But when you look at the fear mongering and the way that it was manipulated and taken advantage of, and all that panic, which was manufactured from the media and Hollywood, you can see that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Not only they went to the level with COVID, they went to the level of.
They had the playbook laid out, and COVID just gave them an excuse to implement it.
They went to the level of propaganda and manipulation with the COVID to the point that they were actually causing damage to people's lives with their fits more so than with the COVID itself.
Right.
Their fits, quote unquote, again, is going to wind up being worse than what COVID did in the long run.
I say it may not be as fast acting as COVID was, but
and now
we're going to see.
And I know people's like, oh, here's Conspiracy Santa again. Look, Conspiracy Santa here is telling you, wait, because my conspiracy is going to turn out to be the truth. Just sit back and watch.
And we've seen that play out with everything they've said is that's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
And then wait 6 months and it turns out, oh, yeah, that was actually true.
Even the frauds are turning gay turned out to be real. And by the way, what's his name? Alex Jones. We need to apologize to Alex Jones right now. Everybody out there in the world does. Because, yeah, he's a little loud and he's a little out there. I get it. But he ain't that wrong.
I mean, I have my issues with him. I mean, especially the
I'm not a
crisis actor. Like, we're not fans of the guy, but
I'm not in his fan club at all. But
it turns out people like that, I mean, they kind of end up being right, and it's weird to say that.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, we're seeing this propaganda, fear mongering playbook play out very, very heavily with the left right now. Like, I have a cousin who is a transgender male. She now goes by Lucas. That's a very vague name. Don't roll your eyes at me. But was absolutely convinced, and still is convinced today, that Trump is taking away her gender affirming care. And I said, no, you're an adult. You can do whatever you want to do. The only thing that we on the right, and, you know, Trump is even talking about, is prohibiting this from being done to minor children, like before they're able to even consent to anything. I mean, this is not happening to adults at all. So that's just another aspect of the fear mongering that's been pushed.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna, like, what is it? Make being transgender illegal or a crime or something? Like, no, that's simply not happening.
yeah, I saw some posts on TikTok and stuff where they're saying that they're just waiting to be arrested come January 20th.
Yeah, like, why? Like, unless you are hurting somebody or something, do whatever you want to do with yourself. We're just saying, don't do this to children.
And that's the thing. It's across the board. It's not just, you can take just about any subject and you'll see, like you said, the gender
affirming care,
abortion, which is a big one. No one's taking it away. Donald Trump's not coming after it. He's not going to ban it. He's not going to make it illegal. All we did was put it back to the states where it belongs. That's the original intent. Has always been that way. It's up to those states as to what they do. Some states will have up till birth, up to the point that, hey, we ain't cut the line yet.
Yeah, the umbilical cord.
It's up to you. I mean, they'll go that far with it. Some states will outlaw it, will make it basically outlawed for everything except for the safety of the mother.
Yeah.
It's going to be all the way on one end of the spectrum, all the way to the other end of the spectrum across the states. And that's the way it should be. It should be a state's issue.
Yeah, that's the 10th Amendment. I mean,
no one's losing their rights. If you're in a state that doesn't match what you feel, then vote. If your vote doesn't go to the point, if you don't win the vote that you wanted, and it's that important, then you have the freedom to move to a state that better aligns with what you want. Same way with gun rights. Okay? Those things are state level issues. Well, do what you need to do.
Technically on the gun rights, Second Amendment trumps that, because the Constitution is the law of the land. If the state law does not coincide with the Constitution, then it is an unconstitutional law.
I know. All I'm saying is that there's some states that have lesser laws versus stricter laws.
Right.
You can, hey, you know what? In some states, you don't have to wear the motorcycle helmet when you're riding a motorcycle. We can call that the same thing too. It becomes a choice issue for the states how much they want to do it. If I don't want to wear a motorcycle helmet and it means that much to me, I'm going to move to Florida. I wear a helmet because I'm not an idiot and I like my brains to stay inside my head. But if I want to take
God put them.
But if I want to ride around without it, then I can change the rules here in my state, or I can move to Florida and go without it. So same thing with your reproduction rights and your abortion.
And I mean, that goes back to the Anthony Nephew case, because that is something that he mentioned was Gilead, which ties directly to the abortion issue. Yeah. Because we all on X and on social media, of Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're at, these women are like, we're going to be turned into handmaids. And
yeah,
I mean, no, we're not. Like, just because you're not permitted to kill your child before they're born does not mean that you are going to be held down and forcibly raped and impregnated. That's not happening. And what's even worse?
Ken, you haven't told her that her handmade uniform's on the way yet, have you?
I've actually got a box in the bedroom now, so.
He gave me permission to do this episode, though, so that's good.
I lengthened her chain so she could come in here. It's a little cold on the porch, so I let her in the house long enough to do this episode. So, but she did have to finish supper before we started.
Yeah, I did make you dinner.
Yep.
When we got home.
Yep.
So, but like, what's so funny to me about that, because I had to read this book for a creative writing in high school, and the book is actually not terrible. It's a little bit dry and everything, but it's not bad. But the irony here is that these women fought tooth and nail to keep those children that they were forced to be impregnated with. Fought tooth and nail to get them out of that, to keep them and everything. These women now are upset because they can't kill theirs. And they're not even being raped.
Right.
And they think they're handmaids. I'm like, y'all have absolutely no concept of what the story actually was about.
I guarantee you 99% of them never, they may have watched that TV show.
Yeah, they don't
But they
read.
didn't read that book.
No, they don't read. These are not reading people. Like,
But honey, they're the higher educated ones. They're the ones with the come from the blue states. It's got all the highest college degrees, graduates.
I had a woman from Seattle tell me, I come from a really smart area of the country. I'm like, have you seen Seattle lately? Because I kind of beg to differ there.
Well, we come from one of those backwards red states. So we don't know what we're talking about. What's reading mean?
I say, we have that Southern twang going on. I think if Orty's still here, he has always told people that the first time he ever heard my voice, he said it was like sweet tea for the soul. But apparently because I talk like that means I'm dumb.
Yeah.
So.
Well, everybody knows we got problems with our reading around here. We have enough problems with our gazintas.
Like, I swear, like, I could go up against somebody who is higher educated, quote unquote.
Look, here's the thing: is like, and just it's a personal moment. We do get the thing a lot of times because we do in a solid red state, and they.
Well, I don't know. Birmingham's blue. We're not solid red.
So they like to say, talking about how dumb we are, whatever, backwards. Her number one activity is to read. And yes, Stephen King fan, everybody knows that. But if you go look at her bookcase, there are so many college textbooks that we've bought for our personal use that she reads
for fun.
And she reads law cases and she studies on law cases for fun, just so that she is prepared in debate, so that she knows what she's talking about.
It's something that interests me. So
that's what I'm saying. She reads it so that she is prepared for debates, that she knows what she's talking about, because it's something she's passionate about. And so, yeah, her way more than me is very well read and learned on a lot of these things.
I may not have ever gone to college, but I'm what you call, I mean, this may sound funny, since we're talking about being educated. I don't know how you pronounce the word, but an autodidact, a self-taught person.
Isn't that robot on Doctor Who or something?
No.
Oh.
No, that's a Dalek. That's a Dalek.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I'm self-taught because these issues, I mean, especially when it comes to law, when it comes to true crime and forensic psychology and criminal psychology, this is stuff that has fascinated me since childhood.
Yeah, when I say we got college textbooks and stuff, I don't mean we got one or two. There's like half a shelf in there. There's probably 20 books or better.
Yeah.
Maybe more than that. They probably pushing over 30 now of these different books on different levels.
I basically tell these people like, oh, well, where'd you go to college? You didn't even go to college, And I'm like, okay, I got probably a better education than you did for a fraction of the cost. So who's actually the stupid one?
Because it wasn't propagandized into your mind.
When I say I didn't have a professor standing there teaching me and like 70 other students.
You wasn't taught what to learn. You just learned.
I learned what there was to learn.
Yeah.
Without all the politicization of it and the propaganda of it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you get all of this stuff, this fear mongering, this propaganda coming into everything.
Yeah.
I mean, and like you said, it's not just look at what college professors have been saying. Math is racist now.
Yeah.
Math is racist. So, like, how do you escape this? Like, if you're proficient at math, now you have this anxiety because, oh my God, I'm a racist just because I'm good at this.
Mm-hmm.
So you're building and creating an anxiety and a fear into people.
Would that make you a mathist?
I don't know.
Well, yeah, like I said, the books you got in there is great. I do have my own section as well. I have a lot of stuff from doctors. I got several Dr. Seuss books. I got some Dr. Hook records, albums in there. I've made it through almost all the Dr. Seuss books. There's a few of them I struggle with. That Blue Fish, Red Fish,
But
One Fish,
you
Two Fish
mastered
is
the
pretty
Dick and
hard.
Jane, so that's good.
I mastered.
He almost said it.
I almost
said it.
Almost said it. And I've got several books that I've almost finished coloring as well.
Yeah, and you can stay in the lines for most of it.
Most of them.
But I don't know. I think we grew up in this generation that we weren't taught that we were evil just because of something we couldn't control, and we weren't taught that anybody was out to get us.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Is like we wasn't taught that we were evil because something we was also not taught that someone else was evil for those same reasons. Evil doesn't have a color. Evil doesn't have a gender.
No.
Evil doesn't have a race or anything else.
Evil is very, very equal opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean.
And the fact that there's one side, especially, that bases everything, seemingly everything, around a race and what color you are the same ones saying, oh, it shouldn't be about race. Well, everything, you make it everything about race.
Yes, they are the biggest racists on the planet.
And it's become what, and that's, I think a lot of that falls into that same folder of what's going on with the mental illness in the country right now, is this brainwashing from all sides that's being
these
perpetrated.
Young kids, I mean, again, from a very, very early age, very formative years, are being inundated with this fear.
Mm-hmm.
They are hardwired now for anxiety, for depression, for other mental health issues.
Yeah, and then they're taught that it's not your fault, and that we, being government in most cases, will fix it for you.
Yeah.
So when, like this clip Rick played earlier, this colleges, when they come up with something that doesn't go their way, they have no coping skills to handle it.
Yes, they have never been told no in their life. They have been told that everything that they do is right.
Yeah, just back to the participation trophies. You're the greatest. You're the best. You are your best self.
And we are not sitting here saying that, somebody's feelings are not valid. Your feelings are valid. They are real. You actually feel them. But it's what causes those feelings of fear and anxiety may not always align with objective
I'm going to
reality.
tack something on that, though. Your feelings are real and are valid, but your feelings are no more important than someone else's.
Yes, they don't make you better than somebody. They don't make you more important. They don't make you more special. Like, you know me. Okay, I'll go back to myself again as an example. When my anxiety gets revved up, and it's usually if, the tiny tyrant doesn't feel good, because my brain goes to the immediate worst case scenario in every single situation. Now that she's starting to drive, I have anxiety dreams about all this. And Daniel has to rein me in. He's like, I understand this fear. This fear is real. Like, he does not tell me that what I'm feeling is not real, because I am feeling it. But he tells me, you just need to take a step back, because the objective reality is that it's not what you're making it out to be. Like, you need to take a step back. You need to take that breath. And you need to understand that the actual objective reality is very different than what your brain is telling you it is.
Yep.
And these people never learned that.
No.
And a lot of them don't even want to get help for it, because, like we were talking about earlier, they feel special if they have something like this.
Yeah, it's everybody. You mentioned reality. Everybody now has their own reality. It's not just the reality. You have
My
your
truth.
You have your own reality.
Yeah.
Like you said, you have just like the my truth. No, I'm sorry. Reality is there's one reality and there's one truth.
And everything else is just how you feel about that and how
Yeah.
you process it. It like somebody saying, well, my truth is, that this is happening. Okay, well, the objective truth says that is
Yeah.
not happening.
Now, you may feel like that this is happening to you, and and to you in your own mind, they may be that war going on that's actually happening, which makes it very real to you. But that's not your truth. And because that mindset becomes my truth, my reality, means it's okay. Everyone else in the world has to accept it.
I said
and
they
go
have
along
to
with
adjust to your truth and your
Yeah,
reality.
everyone else must bend to suit me, because how dare someone have the gall to stand up and say, no, you're wrong, sorry, and this is why. People don't want to hear and this is why anymore.
No, I mean, and that's another thing we've talked about. I mean, going back to even friends that I've talked to telling me what they're afraid of and everything. And I'm like, well, this is not happening. Instead of being reassured at all the facts that I present, and most everybody knows me, I'm very factual, I'm very objective. So I present just the facts. I mean, what's that old Western? Just the facts, ma'am,
Yeah, it wasn't a Western, but
well,
it was.
I mean, kind of that same.
It was a cop show.
Yeah, that's what it was. But I'm very objective. I'm very factual. So I lay out all this. This is why it's not happening.
Hang on. Neither one of you remember the name Dragnet? Seriously?
Dragnet. I was looking up on my phone.
See him looking.
I could see. I had the brain fart because I was looking up on my phone because I knew I was going to look. And I could not come up with Dragnet. Thank you so much, Rick.
Keep in mind, I'm a youngin'. Like, I didn't watch that. Like, I think my grandmother did, but
way to rub it in.
I did not pay attention to this show when I was little.
Yeah, yours was on TV Land. They wasn't even on real air no more. It was
TV Land or Nick at Night.
It was the reruns,
And now I've got like friends on Nick at Night, so now I feel old.
Dragnet, just the facts, man.
I mean, y'all know me. I give the facts. That's what I do. Because that's what soothes me. When my anxiety gets revved up, I need to find out the facts. That's what recenters me. It grounds me. It brings me back to reality. So I try to do this for other people, thinking that they're going to be as reasonable as I am.
It should be reassuring.
Yes.
Yeah.
And instead of being reassured, they get very, very upset with me for telling them, hey, you don't have to be afraid of this. It's not happening. It's that meme that I post all the time. I don't want to be reassured. I want to be scared.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it boils down to.
I think some of them, as weird as it sounds, may take, I guess, comfort. And let me
work it out.
Yeah. They take comfort in being afraid because, okay, Winnie the Pooh, all right? Stick
now
with me here.
I gotta really know where this is going now.
Rabbit on Winnie the Pooh, right?
I'm very much a rabbit.
Yeah, his whole demeanor, the nervousness, the anxiety, the anxiousness that Rabbit had all the time, even when he was working in his garden, getting the carrots and all that kind of stuff, he was always timid. He was always that. Of course, there was some anger in there too and frustration, which I would be too. But that was his comfort thing, because he had been that way for so long.
It's a familiar feeling.
They were familiar. So these people now have spent their whole lives in that same little, whatever their turmoil may be,
conditioned to be afraid.
Whatever being afraid, being anxious, whatever. They spent so long in that, and they've been told over and over and over and reassured that it's completely okay and normal to feel that way. They don't know how to get out of that comfort zone.
That's actually a really good analogy, because when you're conditioned so long to be afraid, not being afraid is terrifying.
Yeah.
That's a new feeling. You have never had to deal with that feeling before, so you don't know how to cope with it.
Mm-hmm.
That would cause more fear and anxiety than the actual fear itself.
Yeah, they've got such a twisted version of a comfort zone that to get out of their comfort zone to a more quote unquote normal existence or calm existence would freak them out,
I mean, I've always said that leftists are very, very miserable people, but they're only happy when they're miserable.
Or when someone else is miserable.
Which sounds like a, contradictory claim. But again, it's a familiar feeling.
And again, I want to interject real quick because I know we have people out there listening that are friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We have friends that are Democrats, okay?
Oh, tons of them.
I can sit down with
members.
I can sit down with a Democrat, family or not, have a cup of coffee with them, shoot the breeze, and we can get up and walk away, hug necks, and go our separate ways, and we're fine. I'm not talking about that kind of Democrat. We're talking about those far left,
reasonable people.
We're talking about those far left, the fringe ones that are so loud right now. Is the ones we're talking about? Yeah, the activist type level. Those are the ones that are instilling this fear.
Yeah, and they're the ones who don't know how to. They don't know how to exist in this world if they're not afraid of something.
That some of those Democrats that I'm talking about actually, I won't out anyone, but they actually did vote against Harris. I'm not saying they voted for Trump, but they voted against Harris this round because of what they were seeing come from this propaganda that's happening. They seeing how okay, let's take Elon Musk real quick. Elon Musk, Trump as well, but Elon Musk has been a Democrat his whole life.
I say he's definitely more left than I think. He's been shifting a little more right, or maybe it's just that the left is going so far to the left that he's now
his own words. A few years ago, he said that he never moved. The left has moved so far.
Yeah.
To that crazed fringe left.
Absolutely.
And now the right has moved that way as well.
Yeah, there are people on that end.
But Musk said he found himself not in the middle, not so much in the left anymore, but he found himself in the middle. And the ones that was more open, the ones that was more clear-headed, the ones that was more accepting, and the ones that were more, what's a good word? Not insane. Okay.
Rational.
Yeah, rational. There you go. Was on the right. The more he's not a conservative by any means. Elon Musk is not a conservative,
and Trump really isn't either.
Trump absolutely is not a conservative, but
that was always our issue.
Elon found his home in the Republican Party because of that shift so far to that extreme left becoming the norm. Same thing with Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
Same thing with RFK. None of these people are conservatives at all.
But we can have a conversation with them. They can be reasoned with.
Right.
We can be adults.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that fringe on the left, that loud, fear-mongering, crazed sect of the leftists is so far left that they're leaving the Democrats. They're starting to leave them homeless now. Mm-hmm. And the homeless Democrats are looking around kind of in that what would be considered the middle now. And on the Republican side, we're like, come over here.
I'm saying they may not be Republican. They may go independent.
Yeah, well, they're saying like, come over here because we have more in common than we have different.
I say we can have a conversation.
If you get a table full of Republicans and a table full of Democrats and put them together and not stir up don't tell them who they are, don't stir up a political debate, they'll have a great time.
Yeah.
Everyone will find common ground. Everyone will sit back and have a good time. If you take these outer fringes and bring them in that stir up
their entire
fear,
identity is wrapped up in politics.
They come into the equation and they bring in that fear with them. They're bringing that agenda with them. That's where the differences start.
Yeah.
And that's what we got right now, especially the past several years.
So they seem to be the ones in charge now.
Especially in the past several years, that's the ones that's getting all the attention, making all the biggest noises. Like Laura was saying, they're the ones that seem to be in charge because they stir up the base, and therefore the people who are, quote unquote, really in charge start to lean that way to appease that very small, loud group.
Squeaky wheel.
Yeah. So that's what's happening. And they have such a stranglehold on the mainstream media, or I'm sorry, Rick, on the zombie media.
Yeah.
and Hollywood that they have all the airtime. They get all the views. They get all the attention because they have people in those sects that are, running the entertainment business, which we all watch, which we all partake in. And that's why they get all that credit. That's why they're so good at spreading that misinformation, to use their terminology, and spreading that hate and that fear, and just keeping it, just rolling it over and over and over again.
I say keeping that fire stoked
24/7, and you can't get away from it. That's the sickening part. And if somebody does step out and trying to be reasonable on either side, they immediately get
ostracized.
Yeah. Like what's Jon Stewart? Jon Stewart is becoming a kind of reasonable on a lot of stuff. Well, he's catching flack. Bill Maher, same way. Yeah. He's catching flack because he's not towing the line for him anymore.
He's saying, hey, this is unreasonable what we're doing, so we probably need to shift from that. And they lose their collective minds.
It's the same thing with like Dr. Phil, for instance. Dr. Phil's always been Democratic leaning, right? Well, here lately, because he realizes that Trump's not a Nazi, that Trump's not Hitler, and that he's got some good ideas, fascist. All of a sudden, he's one of the bad guys now, according to them.
Of course.
He's turned into a crazy white supremacist,
And again, that feeds into the stories that I talked about in the beginning, because now we're seeing it play out in real life with real people who are not celebrities, who are not politicians. We're actually seeing real life consequences.
Deadly consequences at this point.
And I mean, it was like I was saying before you got home, like now we have 2 children, among others, who have been killed. I mean, one of these boys was our daughter's age, 15 years old.
Directly tied back to this craziness that's going on.
I mean, this guy, post after post, very anti-Trump, very pro-Democrat, talking about, we can't have fascism, our democracy's ending, Gilead is coming. All of this objectively can be laid at the left and the Democrats' feet. Right now.
And anyone who knows this knows and will vouch for the fact that if it was reversed, Democrat versus Republicans, we'd still have this show right now about the Republicans going crazy.
Absolutely.
I mean, the mental health, I don't care which side it's coming from, just historically right now, recent history that we can talk at and look at in real time is coming from the left side.
Yes.
Now, give us 30 years, it may be changed. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there is a very real mental health crisis in this country, and nobody seems to be addressing it.
No.
This is what's driving things like mass shootings. Because, I mean, we had the episode about mass shootings and how predominant it is for a mass shooter, especially a school shooter or something, to have a long and documented history of mental illness.
Every one of them, the 2, let's take the 2 recent ones, for instance. Yeah, one of them was a Republican in Pennsylvania. Supposedly he had signed up to be a Republican or whatever. But we can, again, if you want to get political with it, we can debunk that as well on why he was a registered Republican. We can go into that if y'all want to. Right now is not the time for it, I don't think. But if you want to hit me up on X later, I'll explain it to you, and I'll show you in great detail why he was a registered Republican. I don't care Republican or Democrat at this point. Take all that out of it. That fear mongering from whatever side you want to say it's coming from directly influences these people to take action at this point.
I say these are already people who are not stable. They're not of sound mind. So they hear something like this and they feel like it's like the root of their problem. So if they can just take that out, then everything will be okay. And now we're seeing innocent people being murdered for this.
At the end of all this, red or blue shouldn't matter. What's happening with our country as far as this media blast, I guess you want to call it, of very dangerous rhetoric is what's feeding, I think, the majority of this right now.
I mean, they talk about Donald Trump's rhetoric against like immigrants. You don't see these news stories. If this was a problem, the news would never shut up about, oh, these Republicans are attacking immigrants everywhere across the country. It's happening. No, we're seeing these stories happen of these progressive-minded people who listen to the Democrats, who side with the Democrats, who are inundated with the leftist media day in and day out, 24/7. These are already unstable people. So they're very susceptible to that messaging already. If that messaging was coming from the right, we would know it. And it's just not happening.
No. Well, the thing too is if you look at all this 4B movement, for instance, these women shaving their head and all that stuff, you're not going to find a conservative woman doing that.
No. I want to shave my head sometimes just because I don't like dealing with my hair, but that's a whole different story.
Especially in the summertime. But
that's a whole different issue, though.
But like, say the roles were reversed. You're not going to have a 4B movement on the conservative side ever. It's just not going to happen.
No.
And I don't. Okay, you know what? Screw it. Let's get into it. Look, the reason the conservative side is not going to have a 4B movement is because we're not idiots. We don't brainwash easily. Okay, we don't buy into this. When the media says something as a conservative, my first instinct was, well, I got to fact check that because it's probably
well, let me go look that
crap.
Up real quick.
And I'm conditioned to think for myself. I don't listen to, I mean, of course, I value what my wife thinks and says, and we discuss things. Believe it or not, we have these discussions on a random Tuesday night.
Okay,
So
there's a lot of stuff we disagree on.
Yeah, there is. But the pentatonics.
Shut
Jesus.
up.
So anyways, look, I can make mouth noises. So anyhow, you're not going to have those 4B type movements on the conservative side. You may get some fringe Republican people that do some weird stuff.
Let me just say on the 4B movement, these are the women, y'all have seen me on X. Y'all know that abortion is my hot button issue, and I talk about it day in and day out. And I'm always telling women, if you don't want to get pregnant, just avoid the thing that gets you pregnant entirely.
Yeah.
And they get mad at me.
Yeah,
now they're like, well, we're just not going to do the thing that gets us pregnant. I'm like, honey, that was always allowed.
Look, no matter what is being told from the media, and I like the zombie media because
it's brainless.
Rick brought it up, is that the mainstream media now, the legacy media is dead. X or Twitter is number one in news source right now. So the zombie media, being MSNBC, all that kind of crap, even Fox,
your alphabet soup,
even Fox to a degree, is a zombie media, right? So when they post something, even Fox, my immediate thought is, well, I got to look into that and see what's really going on. Because there's always two sides to that story. And when I was growing up, newscasters gave both sides of it. Now they don't.
It was just the facts, man,
Yeah.
back then.
Now they don't. So I do a lot of research on my own on both sides. And what I thought was going to be my opinion in the beginning, I've changed my opinion on some things after doing the research. So when you get these people in the 4B movement, and they're talking about, let's say, the abortion thing, since you brought it up. A conservative, again, maybe not far right, maybe not your typical Republican, but the vast majority of what we consider the red voters are conservatives, okay? A real conservative is going to tell you not what to do. What we're going to do is tell you, you have an option to do these things, but it stops at the point of hurting someone else.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. We're not going to ban you and stop you from doing it. What we're going to do is explain to you that you have options to keep it from happening, number one. And that if it does wind up getting to the point that you have to have that abortion, then you're going to run into some roadblocks, rightfully so, because you're about to end a life. But you do have outs. It's not going to be taken away. Just like Trump said, he's not planning on, I think he's a little too liberal with it than I would like, but
Yeah.
It's a state's issue. You have options. You will always have options, unfortunately. You will always have options. And no big bad government boogeyman, no big bad red hat wearing American flag suit wearing guys going to come to your door and force you and chain you up to make you have a baby.
Okay, we'll talk about fear mongering. Look at these commercials that Democrats are putting out about women being pulled over for crossing state lines and everything, and making them take a pregnancy test on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Straight up fear mongering.
Complete.
This is not happening anywhere.
It's not happening
It is
anywhere.
not a bill in any state legislator. Like it's not happening.
And if you get someone that you know that you're talking to, if you're on this listening, which welcome. But if you are one of these people that believe that, show me one documented case, not a TikTok saying, "Ooh, this happened to me." Show me one case where it actually happened.
I say we want to see actual documentation that it happened.
Yeah, just one. And I'll save you the time. It's not out there. It's not happening
It does
anywhere.
not exist. This is not happening.
No matter what the TV tells you, it's not happening. Take 30 minutes, if you will. Pause your Gilmore Girls and just stop for a minute and say, is this really happening? Look something up for yourself. You have it's called a World Wide Web for a reason, okay?
It's like quite literally at our fingertips.
And I'll tell you what, when you go to Google, go ahead and skip to about the third page, because the first few pages are going to be that same propaganda you're reading, okay? Look for yourself and you'll find that it's all BS and it can be debunked easily.
That's actually, yes, that's advice that I'm actually currently giving my leftist friends and family members. Everything that you say that you're afraid of, I want you to make a list of all of it, what you think is going to happen in the next 4 years under Trump. Make a list of it, an itemized list. And every couple of weeks or so, I want you to go look at that list. And if it's happened, you can put a check mark by that item. And then at the end of the 4 years, I want you to look. And when you see no check marks on that list, when not one thing that you were afraid of has been checked off the list, you need to now ask yourself, why was I afraid of this? Who made me afraid of this? And why am I still listening to them?
Yeah, and about 3 years into it, you're going to have to move all the extra money you're going to be making off your list so you can see it, because your economy is actually going to go up. All this, you're not going to lose any rights. You're going to be making better money if you actually work. Now, if you're on welfare and you're just, you may run into some issues like, hey, it's not as easy to get my free check every month. But if you're a working, tax-paying person, you're going to be benefiting greatly from this economy.
I mean, our little family, like I said, I cannot wait for it to go back, because, I mean, we've even got a give, send, go right now. Just everything that's happened, and the economy is so bad that we didn't have anything to fall back on.
Yeah, after the truck breakdown.
So, like, we're kind of really looking forward to after January coming back. So, because we'll actually be able to put money aside. And
the biggest fear, the biggest fear that you're going to have for the next 4 years is just winning. Okay. That's going to be what you got to worry about. Is
keep in mind, these are people who are so used to and so conditioned that they don't understand that this is actually a good thing.
Yeah, when you can actually afford, I tell you what, take that list with you. Make you a list that you can fold up and carry in your purse or your pocket or whatever. And when you can afford to go out to eat again, pull that list out and check it and see if there's anything you need to mark down while you're out at a nice restaurant again finally, because you can afford it.
Right.
Okay? And tell me, when you're sitting there with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or vice versa, or your cat friend, whatever pansexual person you're with, your partner of choice for that week, and you're sitting there enjoying your steak and your lobster at a reasonable price.
Well, those people would probably be more the vegans.
So you're eating your $39 salad because you're an idiot. Be thankful that you can afford it again. No one's coming after you. There's no big boogeyman with an orange face anymore. Okay.
And we've got to get back to understanding that, because again, we now actually, I have here in a few minutes, I'm going to read you off names of people who are no longer with us because of this fear, because somebody was so afraid and so conditioned to be afraid and just completely brainwashed that this is all happening, that they took these people out of the world.
Yep.
On purpose.
But I guess what we're saying is, if you've got friends or relatives, I mean, they're even encouraging Democrats and leftists to stir up trouble at Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners with their families.
Yeah. They were doing that in like 2015, 2016.
Yeah, they've always done
first
it.
one.
They've always done it.
But I mean, it is ramping up now. Like, oh, it's not enough just to be silent anymore. You have to confront them.
Yeah.
This is going to get very ugly very, very quickly.
Yeah. Just encourage those people that, with as much kindness and love as you can muster,
and a lot of patience,
that they don't have to be afraid. And if you can come up, I would encourage you all to do some research and find some middle of the road, truthful, easy to understand, websites or whatever you can find, and share that with them. Show them that, this has been debunked. Project 2025, do your own research on that, learn what it really is, so you can tell them, like, no, that's not part of it. This is what Project 2025 actually says.
Yeah, because 99% of these people, they're only repeating what they were told about Project 2025.
Mm-hmm.
They have not read it. They know nothing about it. It's just the magic talking box in their hand, or that it sits in their living room, told them that this is what it was about.
Yeah.
So they're just going to believe it.
They've been told from the left, or from the media, that Project 2025 is the devil's playbook and Donald Trump is the devil.
Or it's setting him up to be a dictator. And I mean, it's just absolutely amazing what these people are actually afraid is going to happen.
Well, in their defense, Donald Trump did take the DOJ and weaponize them against his political opponents.
Oh, wait.
He did actually try to get one of them thrown in jail and all this. Oh, hold on. Wait, was that Trump that did that? No, wait, that was Biden that did that, wasn't it?
And then there was Obama sending the IRS after people. So
yeah, that was very dictator-y, if you ask me.
He had a pen and a phone.
I don't care. I don't know if it's a tater move, but it was sure enough a dick move.
But yeah, I mean, we laugh about stuff like this because, I mean, to us, it's so far-fetched that anyone could believe this stuff. But it's what they already wanted to believe, first off, because, I mean, they want to believe that anybody that is not on their side is the devil. So anything negative they hear, I have this Space Ghost meme. It was like that. I believe every single word that man said because it's exactly what I wanted to believe.
Exactly what I wanted to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we're seeing happen. And I think the left now and the Democrats are very, very aware of like the cases like we mentioned tonight. I think they're very, very aware of this. They know that it's affecting people that are already unstable. And I don't think they care. Like, I'm going to go ahead and full-throated say, I do not think they care. I think they're doing this on purpose.
Yep, I agree.
And, I mean, I know we've probably, this was more of a rant rather than our kind of more scripted type show. But, I mean, we're seeing this play out in real time. There's no way to actually ignore it. I'm sure, the average leftist you're going to encounter on X or Facebook or wherever is going to say, oh, that's not happening. Okay, well, here are 2 documented cases of it happening. And I think that there absolutely are going to be more.
I do too. I think unfortunately, going to wind up being more. I hope it's not to this level, but I think we're going to see an uptick in a lot of self-harm type issues. We're going to see an uptick in violence like this. Assaults. We're going to see an uptick across the board on these things. I just hope that we don't see any more of this type of situation where there's murder involved.
I say we don't want to see any self-harm either, but And this may sound very, very cruel and very callous, but at least they're only hurting themselves. They are hurting somebody else. They're not hurting a child.
I always said the murder-suicide, they do it backwards. They should do the murder part first, or the suicide part before the murder, but they never do it that way.
No, I mean, I have no idea what was going on in nephew's head, but I assume that he killed his sons, his ex, and his wife. I assume that he did that to save them,
to spare them from what's coming. Yeah.
Yeah, in his own mind, he thought he was saving them.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I know we got kind of fired up there for a minute, and because it's frustrating, because to me it's a very serious situation. When I see somebody, in this case the media, taking advantage of people who are easily taken advantage of, it does make me angry. And this case is a nationwide pandemic of people being taken advantage of and manipulated. Yeah, and I see these videos. I mentioned the 4B movement. I see these videos of women shaving their head, and it's mostly women. I do see some men or males giving these rants and these crying, pitching fits, and I mean just meltdowns all over TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, all over X. These people who are filming themselves come apart, and
it's entirely performative.
And yes, you can laugh it out. You can laugh it off. It's fine. But it's a sad state, honestly.
It is.
That's what's happening. I do believe some of them are just for the likes and the clicks. But the mindset that that's okay is still pretty twisted and wrong.
Yeah. I mean, we never would have ever considered, if we were that upset about something, ever filming ourselves. This is very, very performative.
Yeah, and again, that falls back to the putting that spotlight of fame on them,
Yeah. I mean, you can't be famous nowadays unless you're like a victim of something. You won't go viral unless you can claim victimhood somehow.
That's the easiest step to becoming viral on something like that.
And that's what the left and the Democrats need to continue. They need this self-imposed sense of victimhood from their base. Mm-hmm. Because as long as they can tell them, oh, well, I can make you like no longer a victim. I can fix this for you. You've got a voting base for life then.
Well, the good news is, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel for these people, is the state of the world right now, especially the state of the United States, is that we actually have it so good if you live in the reality that we live in, which is the real world, and day-to-day living, going to work and with your family and church if you like me go to church. But we have it so good in the real world that people have to make up.
They have to manufacture reasons.
Have to manufacture these issues.
Yeah. They have to find something to be outraged about.
If you come over to our side where you can drop all that baggage and just join us, you'll realize that, hey, life's actually pretty good. Yes, things cost more. Yes, it's aggravating. But you know what? That's going to go up and down. That's going to happen. That's not life, okay?
It's part of life, but it's not.
But it's not the meaning of life. Is your bank account. It's not the meaning of life. The highs and lows are not. That's all part of it, okay? The overall value of your life shouldn't be tied up into that. All right. So if you'll just drop all that, just turn your TV off and drop all that crap, put your phone down and quit looking at it and go outside into this real world where we are.
And just talk to people.
Spend time with people. See that someone wearing a MAGA hat is fine.
Just as human as you are. And
I've seen people with MAGA hats and nose rings. We have a lot in common. All right. Just
MAGA are monsters. Don't tell me MAGA are nice. They're monsters.
Yeah, just quit with the panicking. Get away from that manufactured BS that's out there. Come over and hang out with some conservatives and see life for what it really is. It's pretty dang good over here. Yeah. And y'all are more than welcome to come join us. We'd love to have you. Just leave that baggage where you've got it. Don't bring it over here. Door. you'll be welcome over here and you'll have a better life with it.
Now we'll go into our in memoriam now, and I want to get y'all's input on this because I question whether or not we should include the killers. But Daniel brought up a good point earlier too, that in a sense they are also victims themselves, just in a different way.
Yeah, they were victimized by this, so I say we include him because the woman, she didn't die.
No, I still would consider her a victim of this brainwashing,
But
of
it
this
wouldn't
propaganda.
be in memoriam because she's alive.
Yeah, that's true.
But I would say and go ahead and include Mr. Nephew there.
Yeah, his name was Anthony Nephew. I think he was 45. He was between 45 and 47. I can't remember now.
He was a victim because he was turned into a tool.
Yes, he was weaponized.
He was weaponized through his own mental instability, and
which was not his fault.
Which was wound up being used for this horrific deal. And if he had just been able to get away from it for a minute, it may not have happened.
And if somebody, and this is another thing, if your friends or family, like if you see these signs and everything, and there are always signs, reach out, touch base with them, tell them that like you're there to listen, because this kind of thing should never have happened. His victims were Erin Abramson. She was 47. She was his ex. They had a son together named Jacob Nephew. He was the 15-year-old. Then there was Catherine Nephew, which was his current wife. She was 45. And they had a 7-year-old son, Oliver Nephew. And that was the murder-suicide that happened just a few days after the election. And then there was a woman who killed her father. His name was Timothy Burke, and he was 67 years old. These are very real victims of the mental health crisis, and the mental health crisis in this country is being actively exploited. And we don't need to let it happen anymore because innocent people are now dead because of it. 2 of them are children. And that's unacceptable. So we have to be able to see the signs.
Yeah, when they talk about toning down the rhetoric, you play your part too to tone down that rhetoric. You know, we've lost life already. There's bound to be more. And the media, and including Hollywood, they're not showing any signs of slowing down.
No.
So you have to be the ones out there as a voice of reason to try to tone it down with actual facts and statistics and not emotion, because emotion will wind up turning on you. So,
yeah. But I think that will conclude it for our episode. Do y'all have juxtaposition coming up next?
We do not. There was a scheduling snafu, so we're just going to push to 2 weeks.
Okay.
But
I didn't know. Well, I was going to plug y'all, so.
Well, we should have something coming up from SHR Media in a second. BZ's going to be doing the Bigfoot episode. As soon as it goes live, we're probably going to carry it. So
awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody stay tuned. Y'all know me. I'm Laura. I'm Bumpstock Barbie over on X. I write for Twitchy. My author bio, or my author page, is linked in my bio. I'm the marketing director here at KLRN now, which I've been kind of slacking on that lately.
Slacker monkey.
But I think that's just about it for me then.
I'm Bumpstock Ken on X, and that's about it. I don't do nothing else. Well, help host this show, and I love to set in with other shows as a guest and co-hosting anytime I can. So
you should hang out for the UFO panel next week.
That'd be fun. I've been watching that on the news, and I knew they was out there, man. We can discuss what I think they actually are versus what it's generally accepted. But yeah, I think I'm definitely going to listen in. I'll be glad to join in. BZ has his Bigfoot. I you know me, I love Bigfoot, everything about him. So I need to get with him and be on his show one night. So
that would be interesting.
Yeah.
We do actually have a Front Porch Forensics X page too. That's FP_forensics, and
you can
that's how
find
us.
you can find our show at Front Porch Forensics on any podcast delivery system. Spotify, iTunes, whatever. You can find us on all those. You can also find us on klrnradio.com, and along with klrnradio.com, you can find a plethora of programming to fit your desires, man.
Oh my God, we got a little bit of everything, y'all.
Yeah, and then we're also working with SHR.
Yep, SHR Media.
And they also fit in. We all kind of blend in together, kind of a blended family now, and we got you covered. So please stick around and listen in.
Yeah, it looks like he's already got his feed up and running and still staying standby for broadcast. So we're probably just going to basically shut this one down and jump straight into that one. So I know you guys are normally nice enough to let me list everything, but everybody knows where all my stuff is by now. So we're going to get out of here.
Y'all stick around and listen up.
I listen to a lot of true crime. I listen to it at night. I like the girl talk. It makes me feel alright. I like scary stories in the morning, and I like them at night. I like the girl talk vibes. They make me feel just fine. I listen to a lot of true crime.